All right, hey folks out there. This is Joe Drollard with Overwatch. We have a really good show today, not because of who we are and what we're doing, but because of who it focuses on, and that's those 5 service members that were killed tragically and taken from us in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm glad we got down and got to talk about this. I think, just reading the names out and letting everyone know, who we lost specifically. Sometimes, you just get the numbers, 4 Marines, 1 sailor kind of thing, but actually saying the names was important. But then also, we got to give our viewers, our listeners rather, a little taste of kind of the national debate that's going on out there with all the talk on arming recruiters and this and that, and trying to defend against things like this happening in the future. So
it's really amazing. You can put 5 veterans in a room, and you're going to have 5 different opinions, even on the subject of weapons.
Yeah, there were some great points brought up, but I think it's an issue that needs to be addressed, but obviously with some thought. I think we all could agree on that. But yeah, I think it was a great little show and some good debate, and again, just getting keeping the memory alive.
Yeah, while we were taping, I was thinking that one of the things that I know I hated, and I imagine we all hated when we were in the military, is that someone makes or has a knee-jerk reaction to something, and then they institute a policy and everybody has to pay.
Right.
And then it just gets revoked in 6 months or something like that anyway.
Yeah.
And so that's really what we're dealing with right now. A lot of people want to make snap decisions and change policy and all that right now. And whether you agree or disagree with whatever those changes would be or should be, I think we could all say it would probably it wouldn't be the best decision if they made it right now.
Right. Emotional decisions are usually, kind of tempered like that, and can, like I say, be snap judgments and just get ripped out the window the next day. And so you need to definitely sit down, do some investigation, do some analyzation, and figure out what the best way to prevent situations like this from happening in the future. I think, we get a good little taste of that in the show today. Yeah,
and it's something those of you that listen to us regularly, you're probably going to notice the absence of the Chad Man. So we definitely missed him in the studio today. He's probably going to be out for a few episodes. He's got some personal things going on he's going to take care of. And we look for having him back here in the studio.
Yeah, we need his excitement in here to amp up the volume a little bit.
Yeah.
I sound like you and I right now, we sound like the cooking ladies on the Center Live thing. Yeah.
And if
some cheeses. Well, I love cheese.
I can only monologue Good Morning Vietnam so many
times.
That's
right. Yeah, you're lost on that one.
All right. Well, hey, we'll sit back, enjoy the episode. We hope you get lots out of it. We hope you're able to feel the emotion that was here in the room. You're really starting out from kind of flat and depressed to almost angry. And,
we went through all the 5 stages, right?
Yeah, rather quickly.
That
escalated quickly, didn't it? So, all right. Hey, for Joe, for Evan, for all the guys here at Overwatch, sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and we throw this out to the family members of our fallen 5 in Chattanooga.
When a new enemy attacked America on the morning of September 11th, 2001, they had unknowingly awoken a sleeping giant.
From all over the nation, men and women left their family and friends, their lives and their home, and answered the call to arms.
They came from north, south, east, and west. They became soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, and Coast Guardsmen. As of today, hundreds of thousands of Americans have served for what is now their nation's longest war.
More and more of them are returning home, fighting new and personal wars on many different fronts.
But they are not alone, and they are not forgotten. Their battles are our battles. And while they fight these battles,
we are their Overwatch.
All right. Hey, everybody. This is Joe sitting in for Chad this week. We got an unscheduled program just to take a little bit of time to remember the fallen from Chattanooga. We know it's been a couple weeks now. We've been sitting on this a little while, and we wanted to just take a bit of time for Overwatch to sit and recognize and get a little bit of feedback from all the guys in the room about the devastating events in Chattanooga on the 16th of July. Here in the studio, we got Evan.
Hey.
What's going on? We got Julio over there.
Boom.
Jordan's joining us this morning.
What's up?
And we have the ever-famous Wesley Leon Barrientos. So we wanted to start out by remembering the 5 men that died during the recruiting station attack. There are 4 Marines and 1 sailor on June 16th on or about 10:45 local time in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
July 16th.
And the military, they've released the names. They're out now. Everybody knows who they are. But it's 4 Marines, 1 sailor. We have Thomas Sullivan, a native of Hampton, Massachusetts. We have Squire Skip Wells, a native of Marietta, Georgia. David Wyatt, native of Burke, North Carolina. And Carson Holmquist of Grantsburg, Wisconsin. So these were 4 Marine Corps recruiters. And then the one that actually passed away afterwards was the Navy or Naval Petty Officer Randall Smith. And so we just want to take a little bit of time to remember them, to honor their service and their sacrifice. Anybody got anything to add to that?
No, I mean, that was...
No, just a little depressing just reading that over.
Yeah, it is. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, there's times to laugh. You know, there's times to cry. There's times to rejoice in a birth, and there's times to be sad and memorialize your fallen brothers. And that's just going to be one of those times.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that was I always get my news when I'm in the gym usually because I don't really have a TV connected to cable or anything. So I was in the gym that morning and saw that. That was just angry. That was angry morning.
Yeah, I was with family at Lake Lopez. No reception, but my buddy Henry gets reception, and he told me, and I couldn't believe it. So we went to Pismo so the kids go play at the beach. And then next thing you know, my Facebook just blows up.
Right, yeah.
And I seen what happened. And for what we all been through, it was something that I really couldn't hold back anymore. And I was full of anger and just can't believe that happened here. You know, it's just...
Oh. You know, it was bad, man. I, like most of us, I got to my Facebook crap. You know, I was just going through it, and first thing I saw was that, and turned on the TV and started looking at it. You know, it's tough to watch something happening like that, and then the people outside of the you know, and not in touch with the world, all they're trying to do, they're trying to give him guns, give him this. Like, man, they just fucking died. How about you honor those people? How about you respect their memory? All right, how about you give them some of that respect? And that really set me off for a while. So,
yeah,
and that goes into a great question. You know, all the circumstances aside, they were military members that died on American soil. How do we honor them? I mean, in a way that's fitting. I think we would all say that it's one thing to die in an active war zone, to be killed by the enemy, and then it's another thing when that thing hits home.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how. I mean, I know they're doing the investigation and everything, and we're not trying to get all political or anything here, but what they're going to end up calling it, or classifying the attack as.
I love it. Yeah,
because I know there was
the Fatal Five.
Right, with Fort Hood, they had the same thing where they're trying to decide if it's a terrorist attack or if it's just a random act of workplace violence or something, right?
Workplace violence.
Yeah. So the latest thing I read is that they are their class, or the FBI is trying to classify it as an isolated incident, a stateside. I don't know if that's
like
stateside
domestic terrorism or they have international terrorism, right? And they're trying to decide whether or not this individual had links to ISIS or some international kind of terrorist organization and figure that out. But I mean, just the fact that these guys were just sitting in a recruiting station and unarmed, probably wearing Charlies or whatever, and then just got shot through the window by some,
yeah, because that's what happened, right? He pulls up to a recruiting station.
He's in like a Mustang in his car.
Takes some pot shots.
He drove up to the naval recruiting station first, I believe, which was in a separate location, like and just unloaded, and then drove. And it wasn't like next door. They weren't next door to each other. He drove to a whole separate other location to where most of the fatalities happened at the Marine recruiting station, and did the same thing there. So it's not like he went inside and, like they had the moment where they flipping over their tables. No, some guy just drove up in the parking lot and started unloading. So I mean, that's crazy to think about. That's just happening like in Chattanooga, Tennessee, too. I mean, it's not what you would instantly think of as far as like a, hot target for some kind of
hotbed of terrorism.
Right. It's, and it's the South, so you don't think of a whole lot of like, maybe this is racist to say, but you don't think of a whole lot of like, Muslim subculture going on in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Then again, I'm not from Chattanooga, so maybe I'm unaware of it, but just Chattanooga. It's not like it's Wall Street or something like that. Some kind of target that's obvious. It was just this horrible soft target thing where, I mean, you never really would have expected that to happen. I guess that's maybe why it was so successful on his part, but I mean, it's just a horrible. It does bring up a question. Like, these guys are serving in the military and just unprotected out there.
One of them was in barely a year in the Young Marines.
I know they did have a wide spectrum of guys in there. You had a guy who was like 40 who had a couple combat deployments, and then probably going around trying to get promotions. So he went to do some recruiting duty. And then
so you got Carson Holmquist. He was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. And then I think your highest ranking individual was Gunny Sergeant Sullivan. And he was 40 years old.
Right.
And so quite a few combat deployments. And then so Lance Corporal, that's what, an E3 in E3 in the Marine Corps. So, at the most, 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you were Terminal Lance.
Terminal Lance. Yeah.
Been there.
So so the question then, I mean, on our minds when we think about, you've heard a lot about in the news, should we arm them? Should we allow our military personnel that are stateside? Should they allowed to be to arm themselves with personal weapons? Should it just be part of the duty day that you walk around armed? I mean, you look at militaries across the world, and obviously, they're might not be as big as ours or have borders that are as secure as ours, as at least most of us believe they are, right? And they walk around armed every day because of the threat of violence on their home soil. And I know we don't like the idea. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't even like I don't like seeing our police dressed up like military
sheriffs and Bearcats, and
even the
ridiculous.
I'm thinking here locally they have the probation officers that go out and they serve the warrants for it, and you'll see them in the gas station or
full kit, man. Yeah,
well, full kit at McDonald's, and I have my child in there, and it's like this police. It's RoboCop, or what was the Judge Dredd?
Yeah. And I guarantee that guy does not have the proper training. He just got hired right away. Hey, check out all my gear.
I mean, they're looking like cool guys out there with all their gear. I mean, they carry more gear than half of us wore.
Yeah,
like some of that stuff. I think
they're eager to wear it.
Encountering one of those animals out there on the street, and you have to make sure that you and your police department has some way to stop it. So I mean, I can see why having some of that stuff.
SWAT team.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the SWAT team wears the
and,
same thing.
Having some kind of tactical gear, tactical vehicles. You know, you got to be able to take down whatever threat comes out there.
Well, yeah.
And each police department should take those precautions.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They have a SWAT team.
Do they need an MRAP? I mean, you have the State Department coming back bringing MRAPs to the states.
Exactly.
You paid for them, so keep them in the government. But
but I think more to the point, our soldiers and our Marines and our sailors, should they be allowed
to carry firearms at a recruiting station?
Oh, absolutely.
I think
so.
I think if they have the training, then sure. But who actually spends the time?
I think it is such a slippery slope as far as avoiding the whole thing. Like you're saying, like we want to avoid the kind of like a country in Africa or something where everyone's just walking around with AKs strapped to them all the time. Like we don't want to see that. That's just not really comfortable.
Right. Oh, most people are scared of that.
A sidearm, why not?
Your duty,
why not?
your duty belt, your holster, put your lanyard on. I mean,
yeah,
you're good to go.
I get it. I just don't know for recruiting that's gonna I get it totally. I had when I was in, I had to like I've said before, I worked in the armory for a little bit, and I had to take an optic down to some like Yermo annex or something, one of those weird places from 29 Palms. And so I was out in the civilian world in a van with a driver with an M9 on me, like going to gas stations and stuff like that to get gas with a sidearm on me. And it felt natural and right, after having deployed to combat and not having a gun kind of felt weird. So it made sense. But at the same time, for recruiting duty, seeing a guy walk around with some kind of, Sam Brown belt or something, I'm not sure exactly how they're going to work it. If we're talking concealed carry, if we're talking like a pistol belt on recruiters.
Yeah, we're not talking about personalized weapons. Bring them in. Hey, come and bring your 1911. Bring your M9, your issue M9. Have a locker in the back or something locked up. You check in, you go in, you check in with the gunny, whoever's in charge of the station. You check out your weapon, you check it back in at the end of the day. I mean, you saying, you were going, you had an M9. People are like, oh, well, he's in the military. He has to carry that. It's the same thing with our recruiters. You know what I mean? I mean, it may not look good in uniform, but, I mean,
well, I think it's a little more acceptable to civilians if you're in uniform carrying.
Well, the issue is, it's not just, those random attacks, right? Like that one guy, like this guy in Chattanooga. Well, the thing is that, I'll give you an example. A couple weeks ago, I want to say about a month ago, one of the guys here at the National Guard Armory got mugged and beat up right in front of the armory.
Exactly. I remember that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I remember
because he was going to drill.
Yep.
He was not armed.
He
was not armed. Exactly.
Couldn't have a weapon on him.
Exactly. So, and
which seems counterintuitive.
And nobody got caught.
You have those guys there at our local National Guard Armory, which is located in one of the worst spots in town.
Yeah.
And you have those guys out there.
The land was cheap.
Yeah. You have those guys out there, every other weekend or however, whenever they get together. They're out there, doing their thing, mowing lawns and all that stuff, and they're out there. They don't have anything. I don't know what National Guard does, but
barbecues,
right?
Barbecues,
lawnmower.
Yeah, but those guys are out there, and they're not armed, man. At any given second, they can come out there and smoke those dudes because they are sitting targets.
And then how does it look in the public when they're like, oh yeah, a military base installation, even though they were weekend warriors, they got ran over. Yeah. They had no way to protect themselves.
They got rolled
up. And they can be from 1 to like 40 people there at a time. You know what I'm saying? And that, to me, that's not right. A recruiting station, most 6. But at a recruiting station, you have Air Force, Army, and Marines normally together in one spot.
Yeah, if they have the Armed Forces.
But what if something happened out like...
I mean, you have a good-sized squad element.
Yeah, exactly. And what if something happened outside of the recruiting station, not in the recruiting station or directly towards it, but what if something was happening out there and we have our elite forces out there and they can't do nothing for the civilian population out there that are being shot at or anything like that or help or anything except call 911?
Well, then you run into all different sorts of laws and what's
right.
We're not a local, we're not a police force.
So I believe in theory and in principle that all of our military members, service members should be able to carry. Here's where it bothers me, right? So as an MP in 2001, I'm on Fort Bragg, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and I've never pulled my weapon at a individual before, and something happens on the gate of the installation, and I go to pull my weapon, and I go to shoot, and nothing happens, right? I look down, and the weapon's still unsafe. And so, I mean, we all know from combat situations that everything, in that moment, things start going crazy, and if it's not muscle memory, it's not going to happen, right? Yep. So here I am, a military police officer, which any civilian in the world would say, or within the country, and I hear it all the time. Oh, you're in the military. You're well trained. You're in the best military in the world, and I believe we're the best trained military in the world. I just don't know how far that training goes, and if it's the same type of training that everybody thinks that we get. Because here I am. I had, prior to pulling my weapon here as an MP, I had spent maybe a total of 6 or 7 days on a range. And granted, I hadn't been in the military very long.
Right.
But here I was, and those days, maybe you put 50 rounds of pistol down. That's in no way, shape, or form quality enough training to put someone out there. And so consequently, I almost died. I didn't, thankfully. Now, fast forward a couple years, I end up on my first ODA, and I go to the range. We're doing 5,000 rounds a day out of a pistol or rifle, and we would all concede that a rifle's much easier than a pistol to learn and be proficient at. Yeah. But and it wasn't until I spent a year on a team with that level of training that I felt that I had the ability to manipulate my weapon so that everyone around me was safe. I was safe. Whoever I was going to engage was no longer safe, and the people to their left and right were safe, and that I was going to hit my target. And so there's a disparaging difference between your average military member and what people think the military has as far as training.
Right. Yeah. No, it's not just all day at the range doing.
No, you're absolutely right.
Ranges or,
I didn't get it proficient or good enough with my pistol until I started going out here with some of the civilian guys out here. I joined some clubs and I started going out there and shooting a lot of the heck out of my pistols, and that's when I became proficient with it. So I think we should, people should also start investing on their own ways out there to train themselves.
Yeah, you're gonna have to insist on some kind of training though for anyone that you're gonna. Because you're gonna have recruiters going to. They're going to schools. Where do you draw the line there? They're not gonna be able to carry in schools, I would assume.
The police do.
But that you did bring up a good point.
There
police,
are laws for them though.
Like I know here, BPD officers, I believe. And I might be getting this confused with the sheriff, but one of them, they're required. I think it's BPD is even off duty are required to still carry a sidearm.
It's BPD.
Right. So and at the very least they are allowed to, anytime they want to, carry a sidearm. And what's to say, the more you're having these domestic terror attacks or international terrorist attacks that are happening domestically, whatever you want to call it. And the military is a target, just like I would assume they're thinking a police officer is. I guess. I
think it's the same thing for police officers as we're talking about recruiters. Like half of them don't go to the range as much as they should, and it's more than just range. Drawing your weapon, reloading your weapon. How many people practice just drawing?
Right.
Honestly, it's.
I can't tell you. When I got to my team and one of the guys stuck me in front of a mirror and said, "Hey, just stand here for the next few hours and draw your pistol." And it takes that. So there's another question, that leads down that road, is to what level then, in wake of what just happened, to what level then should we expect and demand that our military change the way they're training?
How about some Barney style?
I think you got a difference between. I think the easier thing would be changing the perspective on how the public views. Maybe. I understand there are.
Well, I think it's changing.
There are units that have to just, like you said, train all the time and be quick draw McGraw and all that. But for the most part, you're looking at like volume of fire, like large infantry units, like a line unit. It's not really about like. It hasn't been until now, I guess. I mean, and even this is fairly isolated. But I mean, you're talking invading a country with tanks and 30 guys rolling out of an AAV and pointing their rifles in the same direction and shooting at the same time, kind of thing. It's not as much about,
Well, and there's
drills.
just a difference of social media right there, right?
Yeah,
World War II, they come in and level a city or a village or a town, and now if you do that,
But even I think the guys in World War II were less trained than they are now.
Right.
Except by the time you got 3 years into World War II and you were still alive,
But they had
you were
public
fairly-
backing for
you were
that kind of
fairly
stuff too.
proficient with your
That
weapon.
was there wasn't the whole political correctness going on then
Yeah,
either,
but-
like it is now.
My wife was asking me
Well-
that the other day. She was, or a couple, actually like 2 nights ago, she was talking about, why do you think there's more this or more that, or it seems like, more violence, or it seems like there's more, suicides, or people are getting more traumatized with things. I said, well, you got to realize that like Vietnam is the first war really where like the news media was allowed access into it. Before you had cameras in World War II, but it was like the U.S. government had a cameraman and then decided what to send back to put a little film reel in before the movies for people. It wasn't like CBS was there shooting whatever they wanted to, kind of thing, news wise.
Right.
So it's not that
war bonds.
it's not that there's a
Captain America.
change. Yeah,
well,
exactly.
a lot of people still see it now with the GoPros and
Yeah, but
you know,
and
a
that's
lot of-
and that's the point is you're getting
Yeah.
you're getting
The first person experience.
right, as opposed to kind of a filtered
The gamer
experience of what. So yeah, I mean, I guess people do probably think it's this whole.
Well, I mean,
Everyone's
public
high
perception
speed.
is we do get all kinds of high speed training, but how many of us in here probably just laid down some engineer tape to pretend we were kicking in a door and clearing a room? I mean,
like that to me, that stuff, dude. It comes down to the people and the training too. Like, for example, I'll give you an example of this. All right, hand-to-hand combat back in those days. I mean, it's not as the way it is now, where you're actually learning jiu-jitsu and all that trash. But those hip tosses and all that stuff, thrusting with your freaking bayonet and learning how to do all those things. That attention to detail, that perfection that we had. We strive for perfection back in those days. Yeah, we were so far away, but we trained so much harder. We worked so much harder than the other ones. And nowadays it's like,
well, I think that's unit to unit. I mean, the unit I was in, we trained constantly, but
how many times did you train for perfection?
I mean, I think you always train for perfection. I think everyone has their off days, but I mean, yeah, some people are going to phone in. But what I'm saying is, I think the public sees these movies and what the media shows them, and they see all the high speed stuff.
So as a veteran, do you want civilians showing up to your workplace to defend you if you're in the military?
no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there was I think it was the DoD or maybe it was Department of the Army, or I saw some. And again, this is from the internet, so it's probably not true, right? But saw some kind of press release thing that they were saying that you need to treat those people. There was people showing up all across the country with their ARs standing outside of recruiting stations, and in their opinion, I think they were saying, well, if you're not going to let these guys protect themselves, we'll stand out here and protect. And that's a good notion, but the Army was like, well, you got to treat them like they might be. Like threats.
Well, you
too.
never know,
because
and
one dude could show up and be like, "Oh, okay, perfect."
How many of those guys are? How many of those guys are trained
too?
too?
For like 5 minutes, like
Act like I'm
these guys,
behind
like,
you, but then I'm
and
gonna
just
shoot.
gonna
Yeah.
turn around and shoot all
But
of
it
you.
comes down to the same thing. Do those guys have even the training that we had? I mean, we all agree that at times our training was lacking.
Well, no, a lot
Well,
of
if you
these
believe
guys,
the pictures that are going
No.
around, right?
No, a lot of these
right
guys
now,
are the
this-
backyard shooters,
Yeah.
Right.
the Amazon
Their
gear
ARs are nicer
guys,
than ours ever were, but
Right.
they don't know what the things on their AR do. Like,
Yeah, but some people, they do have, some civilians do have great pistol training, great close quarter training, because they spend 5 days out of the week at the range shooting.
Yeah, that's about
That-
2%.
but that's a small percentage.
Yeah, like
that's right.
2%.
Exactly. The rest of these people, it's not saying that they don't know what they're doing. It's just that I would rather
Shoot
take my own
first, ask
chances.
questions.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, and we look at the recruiters. How many of them actually were combat arms or anything? I mean, you had a logistics specialist. I didn't see what the jobs for the Marines were. Just they had rank sergeant, gunnery sergeant.
Well, one
So
of them had
who-
2 Purple Hearts, so
That doesn't mean anything.
And
I mean, no, that means absolutely nothing. You don't have to be combat arms to have a Purple Heart.
not combat arms, but it was.
I mean,
yeah, so you
just-
have a so apparently, according to Wikipedia's already got a page up for these guys. This Sergeant Holmquist, that was his rank. It doesn't really say what his job was, but I guess for the Southern Navy guy, his rank, according to Wikipedia, was logistics specialist, second class.
That's what I've
So
seen
don't believe everything you
in the
read on
news
Wikipedia.
too. As an LS in the Navy, how often do they go shoot? I mean, Mike Corman at Walter Reed couldn't even go to the range. They had to drive 3 hours to Quantico and hope that they would get to qualify.
As a military police officer who's charged with providing security on a military installation, I can tell you that we were allowed to shoot our pistol 1, maybe 2 days out of the year on the range.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
My friend's an MA in the Navy right now.
It's about what I went to the pistol range.
Yeah, well, she's an
Once-
MA right now in the
twice a year.
Navy, and she would go out there and she'd be like, "Oh, well, I always have this problem and that problem. Oh, like because you're doing it all wrong. Draw her weapon from the side and going around to it. So that's with me, I decided to like show her a couple things that I learned along the way, and I didn't learn those things till I got out in the civilian world with pistols.
Right,
Because in the military,
Where did you guys go to dinner?
Huh?
Evan and I were talking about when we went on a break. I carried a M9 with me on deployment, and I shot it once before I deployed, just to qualify with it, and that's it.
I thought you got your dog kill with that.
Yeah, I think we just have all.
I think everybody. No.
All the advanced, not even advanced, all the intermediate pistol training I had came down to senior NCOs deciding that they wanted to share some information with their junior NCO, and it was basically.
But how many
we
EEO
have time to
classes
kill.
did you go to a year?
I mean, when I was qualified as a pistol expert because I had to work in the armory, and they decided they wanted to catch up and make sure they were following the rules of the Marine Corps, and I went to the pistol range once, qualified because I had shot pistols as a growing up or whatever. I that was my thing when I was a kid, so I was able to do that. But that was purely for like marksmanship purposes. There was no really drawing or like weak hand shooting. Actually, I think there was a little weak hand shooting, but it wasn't.
Sure.
Yeah, it was no like practical knowledge. So yeah, I mean, like I said,
Do the recruiters actually still conduct training even though they're recruiters?
like the MEPs. Oh, do they
go to rifle range?
I'm
Do they go
assuming
pistol
no.
range?
I mean,
I would actually like to find out.
The requirement for the according to AR, you're supposed to qualify once a year.
Well,
You have to qualify,
depending on
but-
where
But
you're
yeah,
at.
it's true,
Like
'cause,
at Walter Reed, when I first got to Walter Reed, my rifle qualification was good for 2 years, and then before I left, they changed it to your rifle qual's good indefinitely while you're here. Because
You're all supposed to do PT, but I've seen some of the.
I've seen
recruiters
some
on
big
there.
recruiters.
They either get.
I was
ripped
just about to
and
bring
buffed
that
and,
up,
like,
too.
or they get That I don't know. That's a good question, right? Because like they
It's
kinda
along
just,
with
they kind of
the
just go out to on like
Yep.
here you're in
weapons training, their PT, like Joe said. I mean, a lot of their training goes out, and I think they should start implementing back into it.
So with all this stuff going on, what do you guys think is the overall morale? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of guys and gals out there feeling like, hey, we can't protect ourselves while we're here.
But I think
veterans
now they're
have
not
everything with
as
the-
complacent as they were before now. I bet they're watching out now and being more observant like they used to be before the recruit.
And I'm sure you're going to have recruiting locations become a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, just more secure. They're probably going to start beefing up the glass.
Tactful.
And
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how your guys' experience where you guys were at. I mean, at Fort Hood, after the shooting and stuff. Well, there's been multiple there.
right.
They like to restrict everything. They don't say, hey, let's up the security unit to unit. Yeah, they'll up the security at the gates, but around the individual units, they just put you on more restrictions. Like it feels like they tie your hands.
Yeah,
even
but
more.
wasn't the Fort Hood shooting when it went from a major, an officer,
well,
right?
well, there
So
was
it was
there's been another one.
So it was a
since
military member shooting on a base. So yeah, I would restrict a lot going on there. But this is a civilian shooting at the military. I would up their arms.
But it's the same. It's a
yeah.
concentrated force of service members, and one guy there. How many did he take out at Fort Hood?
At Fort Hood, I think it was 13.
And it was like, wasn't it like 26
I think it was
wounded or
13
something?
and
Yeah.
like
Oh,
Yeah.
was it?
yeah, I think it was like 13.
I mean, they're and
Well,
they're
and then
sitting ducks.
Since then, there's been another one, but
And then we paid for him to sit
at
get
the
3 meals a day.
that happened at the Soldier Readiness or the at the
Like
SRP
family
Center.
readiness or
So
something,
no, it
or-
was
or
the where
soldier?
you go before you deploy to get all
Okay.
your shots.
Okay.
And
Do
you
your
go there for
finances.
when you do your
When you
when
come back.
When you do
He was like a shrink or something, right? He was like
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I don't know. I think getting back to
figure
the
it
whole
out.
training thing, I think if you could show proficiency,
So he made
on
everybody
a-
believe he was.
I
there
think
for
it should
them.
happen more than once a year to be able to carry a sidearm like
I
that.
would
in
see
the-
at least like the
quarterly
head
or-
recruiter or something like in each.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
usually
have
the
it
you know the
designated,
senior
Well,
like-
you
staff
guys-
NCO.
Screw that.
I mean,
Screw that
NCO of
crap.
the day or whatever.
No, I'm not.
Whatever
I'm
you
not
guys
saying
did,
what
they
I
carried,
think is
didn't they?
right or what I think is wrong, but I mean, what's actually going to happen?
You know,
Well, I mean,
I say, you know, in my honest opinion, screw that crap. Screw the no, forget about it. Just give those guys, give them all guns, and you know what? Maybe they can't shoot, maybe they can't shoot. All right, but at least
But that's why they bring back in training.
But at least
but they're gonna hit something.
they're gonna have a chance.
Exactly.
And
Well,
that's,
you-
Well,
that's all
no.
they need.
Well,
But,
that's
you know,
like I
for
said
me,
earlier. Give them their weapons
give 'em
back.
the right to
just don't show
CCW.
up with your personal weapon. You go in. The senior the senior staff goes back there. He opens up the locker. He issues your weapon for the day. Same routine like we do in the military. And then you sit there. You have it on your hip. It's holstered. It's clipped. It's closed. But you're ready to go. You know,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you turn it back in. You go home.
We're not asking for like special privilege. No. Give us a chance.
Yeah, don't
Well,
need
I-
no
chance to
M4, no
survive,
M4s,
you know? Yeah.
no AT4s. no,
I agree with
you
giving
know,
a
some
chance, but
sidearm.
what other doors do
shoot
you
your
open
eye
with
out,
that?
sir.
How many guys, if they aren't proficient, like you have guys messing around Iraq playing, play quick draw with each other, and they end up shooting
If I
each
remember
other.
correctly, there
Like,
already didn't a recruiter already like, shoot
almost
himself?
the next day, a recruiter
Yeah,
shot
like a
himself in the
recruiter.
leg or something.
Yeah, there was
Yeah, but it was actually a recruiter there that
There were
there were two personnel that fired
Lieutenant
back.
Said there
commander
was
that
some
was there
return-
had a 9mm, and one of the Marines had a 9mm.
when they're probably.
So-
You
gonna
know
get
what?
an
I
NJP
could
for
actually
that.
see something happening, and if they did, if they were wanting to give him the M9 or anything, and there was a grunt on recruiting duty, and he had PTSD, this and this, but they were giving him, his weapons in the fleet. But when he got a recruiting, they're like, that'll probably be the reason they'll be like, no, we're not giving it to him, because now he's around civilians, he's around kids that are coming in that want to be in the military. You know what I mean? So they think
And I
there's
think
that
that's gonna be
chance
the-
of
that's
something
gonna
of
be the main
him.
argument for people is the stance or the appearance that it puts out for.
Then you end up with a DEA incident. Everybody
Yeah.
saw that video running around with
Yeah.
the DEA agent shoots himself in the foot.
Yeah, it's
Well, at the same time, you had that one who was a volunteer sheriff who thought he was using his taser, ended up killing somebody by shooting him. It's like, how do you?
No
like I
proper
said,
training.
I think it just comes back to training. If they
you're
have the
talking about
training,
those
I got no
isolated
issue with
incidents,
it.
though, man. You're talking about all of this bullshit. At the end of the day,
You-
we just want our guys to have a chance.
So
And, like,
isolated
to me-
incidents. I
to
mean,
me-
this is
To
an
me,
isolated
those
incident.
isolated incidents are not worth one of my guys. They're not worth half of my guys. If I could give away 10, 20, 30 of those incidents a year, right, to have one of my guys back,
Well,
then screw it.
No,
Give our guys a chance.
I understand
I
give him a
agree.
chance, but I agree with you to a certain extent. But just to play devil's advocate, we're talking about an
Fuck the devil.
no. I see
All
what
right,
Jordan's
let's-
saying though. I mean,
America.
There's probably been more.
There's more cases of
incidents
some private
than
shooting
there has
himself in the
been
foot
than there
than
has been a terrorist attack on.
I'm
on a recruiting
saying
station.
put some regulations on it, like we were saying, have
It
your
can't- unfortunately, we
senior
can't just, we
NCO.
can't just give the guys guns because they are representatives of the U.S.
Oh, there's going to be
You know,
There's
if
gonna have to
they
be
if they
so
did
much-
bring it in.
Hey, if it saves one person every 30 years,
I get you. It's just it's not
if,
going to be as
even if
easy
it's that
as
isolated, if it saves one person every 30 years, then why not do it? If it saves one guy from getting killed in
Yeah,
our home
but,
soil,
Okay, so you have five guys who were killed, two others who were injured, well, one other military member that was injured, and a police officer was injured. Yes, it sucks. Yes, I think it's act of terrorism. I agree with you on all that. It shouldn't happen. How many instances do we have of some private killing another private? More than 6 guys in a year. So, are
I
we
don't know.
asking
Do we
for?
have statistics on that?
Yeah.
I could
don't
probably
know.
find it, but and we had a guy in Iraq on gate guard, some PFC, I'm not gonna mention his name, who was messing around with his M9 and almost shot one of the guys because he's screwing around with it. Like,
Well,
you
well,
run into those
I think we
issues.
just need to bring it all back to.
Yeah.
I think we all feel as veterans that we
Yeah.
probably could have been better trained.
Right.
Yeah.
We think that the government should probably spend less time on some of the things that they're spending time on within the military, and spend that time and money on training our folks.
I think that's an excellent point.
And then while they're here, throw some resources into protecting them.
Well, I agree. I mean, I agree with all that. It's just like I said. I think if it comes down to training, if you're proficient with it, go for it. If you can't show proficiency, like, get behind your desk. I hate to say that. Let your senior NCO take care of it.
Yep. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, it's a serious topic. It's not a lot of fun and games. As you can see, 5 good friends sitting in here. We all have a little bit of a.
We don't know Jordan.
Jordan.
That's okay.
Who
That's
is
fine.
that guy?
Who's that
Who's that guy? So
Gonna delete you from the website.
So
Julio.
it's going to bring out high emotions. I can only imagine what it's doing on bases all over the world right now.
Yeah.
And so our hearts go out to them. Our hearts go out to the families of these 5 individuals that I think all of us agree that this never, ever, ever should have happened on American soil. And that we expect our government and our military to do absolutely whatever it takes to prevent something like this from happening again.
You can't leave people hanging out
And
there
all
like
of
that.
our support and all of our prayers and all of our love goes out to those 5 service members, specifically their families, as they're the ones left with us, and they're the ones that are left with the scars of dad and son and brother and friend not coming home. So our thoughts, our prayers go out to the family of Carson Holmquist, Randall Smith, Thomas Sullivan, Skip Wells, and David Wyatt. For Overwatch today, this is Joe, and we're out.
Oh, bruh.